Hey folks, how you doing out there? Just getting a redo on this Canadian whiskey video that I did yesterday. Kind of try something a little different here today. I'm going to try dial in. I'm going to redo it. It was rather choppy. I'm not guaranteeing that it's still not going to be choppy as I look over at the feed and to right now over on the computer. It doesn't look like it looks like it's quite behind, so I don't know what's going on. But I'm just going to go for it here and tell you about something new in the end. So anyway, we're going to talk about Canadian whiskey. Yesterday, when I did my little thing here, we had I was hoping for a very Canadian kind of style weather, and instead we had a kind of a wet, soppy rainstorm. It took another 24 hours to get a crazy snowstorm. So this is what the front of the Drink and Wing Studios looks like right now out front. I did some shoveling. Neighbors did more shoveling. Thanks to them. And it's looking a little bit like Canada out there right now. So there you go. Um, we're going to look at a couple of different things today that I mentioned yesterday. We talk about Canadian whiskey. I'm going to give you a little more information than I did yesterday and a little less blah blah blah, okay, about other things. We also have another announcement. I don't know what the other things are. All right, we're already off to a funky start. Again, the announcement is coming later. Let me tell you a little bit about Canadian whiskey and my kind of travels in it. All right, so Canadian whiskey for me has always been when I was still hanging out, with hockey folk. I would sometimes get some, Canadian whiskey, and it was usually Crown Royal or Canadian Club. Seemed like there was always a bottle of Crown Royal around, maybe whether I was at the house or someone else's house, my parents' house. I don't know, maybe they didn't. But Canadian whiskey was around, but I didn't give it too much of a thought. And I just bought a couple just to have. One of the most popular Canadian whiskeys is this one right here. Am I touching it right? Yeah, the Canadian Club right here. Um, and that's very good for mixing and throwing into Coke and not much else. So I didn't really give it a thought. Then a while back, somebody gave me a very old bottle of Crown Royal. I grabbed the wrong one. Okay. Which I later found out is looking more and more like this was from the 60s, and it was sealed. Okay. The only problem with that was, if you can see on this label, it had the old Ontario label on top. Okay, and it was down here. Then there was plastic over it, but right where it came down on the edge of the bottle, kind of popped out under the plastic. That was where the year was, and that was worn away. But other than that, that was a new bottle, and all the labeling there. It's from the 60s. So I opened it up. I looked around. I thought, well, maybe I could sell this. But then I was like, no, there's not a big market for that. Let me try it. And I liked it. Never really gave it another thought. Then about a couple years ago, I was listening to an interview with one of the brand ambassadors for Canadian Club. Okay. And she was going on and talking about, what was her name again? Harkis. I already forget her name. I'm not going to look it up, but you can look it up. She was talking about not only the regular Canadian Club, but some other ones they had on offer. And she was really, as I just dumped it, she was really pushing the Special Reserve 9-year-old. And I was like, well, we'll give that a chance. I looked and went for it and found it and bought it. And I ended up enjoying that a lot. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And then finally, this brings us to a couple other, interesting purchases that I've made, bringing me to the Crown Royal Noble Collection Winter Wheat, which I just got. Let me tell you a little bit about Canadian whiskey. If you don't know much about it, I don't know if I'm going to help you out a whole lot, but I'll give it a shot, okay? I am guessing that the video is still very stuttery, but at least I'll have my stuff together a little bit better. So, Canadian whiskey, what is it? What is it not? Okay, Canadian whiskey there are more similarities to, American whiskeys and Scottish and Irish whiskeys than there are differences. The differences are slim, but as I said, it's mostly in the regulation, okay? Canadian whiskey is a little more lenient with the kind of, by definition, the grains that they're using. So, like bourbon and rye, they're going to use rye or corn, some malted barley sometimes, and they could use wheat. and then there could be some other grain whiskeys in there. But for the most part, they're using the kind of the same materials as Scotch and Irish whiskeys and the American whiskeys do. The only difference is they don't once like all those different combinations can turn into what we would call Canadian whiskey. All right. So when somebody's making a whiskey and 51% or more of that mash bill is coming from corn, that turns into a bourbon. Okay. And there's plenty of rye in all the bourbons that you drink. Same thing with rye. All it has to be is 51%. That's all about in America. Here we have a little bit of a different thing. When we talk about a wheated bourbon, right? For instance, still the predominant grain in there is corn. The secondary grain is what's being replaced. In this case, wheat replaces rye. Okay, you'll find that a lot of times all whiskey distillers here in North America will add some amount of malted barley. In comparison, all Scotch single malt whiskey is malted barley, because I guess that helps with. I don't really know the science of it, but it helps with in the fermentation process to make something turn the starches to sugars or sugars to starches or who knows? No, starches to sugars. That's what feeds fermentation. Blah blah blah. So there's always a little bit of that in American whiskeys. Canadian whiskey is no difference. The thing that can be a little confusing is, they were using all the different products all the different grains that are grown in Canada. Wheat is plentiful. They grow a lot of corn. There was a lot of rye. And from what I understand, the German and Dutch immigrants into Canada started really pushing for the rye because it was so plentiful and it added a different flavor and spice to it. So that started coming into play, and it was used so much because it was, it had a different flavor. It probably was a little bit of a different character, just having such a rye-heavy whiskey. And finally, it became such a point that it was also kind of a mark of distinction. You had your common whiskeys, and then whiskeys with a lot of rye in it became something a little special, to the point that Canadians really kind of got, I don't know if it's just laziness or what. I would never call a Canadian lazy, at least to their face. But Canadian whiskey kind of became synonymous with just calling it rye whiskey. Okay, so a little correction from yesterday. A lot of times when we hear, as I said yesterday, when we're talking, we see old movies and stuff like that, we had this idea that Canadian whiskey became synonymous with rye whiskey, and there was also the predominant whiskey over here during Prohibition. Turns out that wasn't as much of the case as everyone kind of reads and thinks, but it was obviously still legal to be made, and then it came in here. Now, if it came in here by illegal means, it still means that it was illegal, right, during Prohibition. But it did survive that, and there were also a couple that were designated with its medicinal properties. So all over the board, we can say that the Canadian whiskey kind of came into some more prominence and then started coming over here. The other thing was that by adding different ingredients, they could sometimes beat, after Prohibition until today, they could beat some of the taxation of exporting it from Canada to the States. Okay? So that's how they get their mash bill. They're very different. They're very interesting. The last thing of note, a couple of things that I want to note when they're making this whiskey, and I'll tell you a little bit more about the distilleries, is the one thing that we want to keep in mind is usually they keep the grains separate and distill them separately and then mix them or blend them when it comes to the maturation process, okay? Whereas some other whiskeys, now whiskeys in the States do that, and in malted barley, or in single malt Scotch, you're only using malted barley, so this wouldn't apply. But for some other companies, they will put those different grains together during the distillation process, or like blend it up, and then that's what they get. I don't know which ones do that, which don't. I just know there was a distinction with Canadian whiskey that for the most part, they distill all the grains separately, and then they make their final grain or their final blend. Usually the corn and some malted barley is their kind of the base whiskey, and then they consider rye and wheat to be their flavoring whiskey, so they might blend those later. So really all Canadian whiskey that you're going to drink is going to be a blend. All right, I just want to make sure that my stream is still running here. You know what? I can tell that it's running. I think it's running. Who knows? Hey, there's Michelle. Now I'm going to start talking a little bit about companies. I think I gave you about as much as I wanted to about information. Let me just check my notes here before I start talking about brands and stuff. Yes, one more thing. This could be a little confusing to whiskey lovers. There is also this thing. I can't leave this out because it's kind of what could sometimes give Canadian whiskey a brand name. Fuck, a brand name and a bad name. That's what I was going for. But it's called the 9.09% rule. And what this is they are allowed to add flavoring into the whiskey. Okay, there's no regulation against that. Okay, that is a big difference from American whiskey and Scotch and Irish whiskey. Okay, where the only way you can really add any kind of foreign flavor, if you will, to the grains is by aging in a barrel. That's all whiskeys. In Canada, they can actually add some kind of other flavoring into this. Okay, to give it flavors. Crown Royal is probably, the most visible one that does that. They have a green apple. They have a honey. They have, what's the other one? What's the other? Oh, vanilla. A bunch of different ones. They have some that they add cognac to it, okay? And again, this isn't a finishing thing. You can get all kinds of whiskeys that are finished in other types of wine casks, rum casks, and all that. This is actually, they can add it legally. However, you can kind of turn you off. But from what my understanding is if a flavored whiskey is not your cup of tea, then don't buy those. But there are some others that really benefit from it. It's not just kind of weird flavorings. They can add some single malt Scotch into that. I know I had it down here in my notes. I know where is it? Oh, J.P. Wiser. A higher end bottling of that one, they add a 52-year-old single malt, okay, 4% into their what is called Union 52. There you go, 52 years old, and they add 4% of a 52-year-old single malt Scotch in there, and all of a sudden, I think I get magic ensues. So that's the last thing that you're going to think of. It really is just kind of a distinction. It's a little different. We call Canadian whiskey, and then they can be flavored. We can come over in here and look at all, we see a bunch of Tennessee whiskey companies that make something. Who makes that rock and rye, Michelle? Do you remember who made the rock and rye? Yeah, that thing that bottle that we had. And Tennessee honey. Okay, but those are the same things. You'll see those in the stores. Now, you'll notice that it doesn't say whiskey on there, but those are all coming from, distilleries here in Tennessee and Kentucky. So, don't roll your eyes when you hear that they can add flavoring. None of them that I'm going to show you today have had that happen, however. So now let's get into the brands a little bit, okay? There are, just like every other whiskey region, different places are popping up all the time. But for Canadian whiskey, we have 7, or we can say 8. There's only 7 on this map, but there are 8 distilleries that we're going to talk about that are kind of the distilling in the traditional fashion. Okay, there's plenty of small ones. They pop up all the time, but we're going to go from west to east here. We're going to start with the Alberta Distillery, which makes a lot of great stuff. The Highwood Distillery, Black Velvet Distilling Company, Hiram Walker, which makes both Canadian Club and J.P. Wiser. Then we're going to go over, actually, I went a little bit too east. We're going to go up kind of into the center there, the Gimli Distillery. The Gimli Distillery makes all of the Crown Royal products and some other ones. It's one of the biggest. Crown Royal is the biggest seller of Canadian whiskey in the world, okay, globally. We have 40 Creek Distillery and Valleyfield Distillery. Finally, what's not on here is Canadian Mist. Canadian Mist, I'm sure they make some good higher-end products, but you can find Canadian Mist in a lot of grocery stores. I was checking it out in the last couple of days, and our Binny's has many of the products from these distilleries. As a matter of fact, the Alberta Distillery, there's a cask or a wine cask, an aged wine cask variety in here. I actually have never really looked in depth at the Canadian rack too much, and then I did, and I noticed, there was one from Valleyfield that I'm showing you here, all that. We're going to get into that a little more later, but let me just turn that one off. Wait, map on white, I want that off, and there you go. We'll talk about this later. I'm going to go back to my other scene. So let me talk a little bit about what's on my shelf. Okay, I'm going to start with Canadian Club. Okay, Canadian Club and the other one here, the Reserve, are, like I said, Canadian Club. I know Johnny Lee Lane likes CC and Coke. Okay, the CC and Coke is such a popular thing, whether you're using Canadian Club or Crown Royal, that it's, you just say it at a bar, and they're going to give it to you. And if you say CC and Coke, and they don't have CC Canadian Club, they'll give you Crown Royal usually. Okay, this one I've had it. I've had it for a while. I don't use it much. This really tastes very, very grainy, and has kind of a. It almost has like a Coca-Cola, like a flat Coke flavor to it. Okay, I hate to roll my eyes at it. I'm going to give you some other suggestions. Okay, that's the Canadian Club. But for if you're making Cokes, or you're making some, you know, you're using it for blending, you're trying to replace rye or something in a whiskey like that. That's cool. However, like I said, I found out about this blended 9-year-old here, the Reserve 9-year-old, and I bought that, and that was a pleasant surprise. Okay, I'm going to give you tasting notes on that one. So this is Canadian Club 9-year-old Reserve. Now this is interesting. This one still has that cola taste, and I'm going to say that a lot with Canadian whiskey. For some reason, that has this cola taste. Not necessarily Coca-Cola in the terms of sweet, but that little kind of tanginess that you get when you drink cola. This one I get a lot of rye spice on it. I get some woody notes, some darker wood notes, darker fruits, the old figs and raisins. And again, there is still that cola note. On the end, there's some burnt sugar and burnt wood. And I would say that on this one, this is like a 22, 23, 25. I think I saw it today for $23 or something like that. You would really enjoy this, okay? Especially if you're if you're a rye sipper, you actually like to sip rye, this one is for you at a great value. And if you also want to look for maybe an alternative, a little bit spicier, different way, and a little fruitier variation on something on cocktails that you use rye for, I would use this without question. The final one here that I was going to mention from this distillery is J.P. Wiser. Now, J.P. Wiser is a very interesting company. They let me see what I could say about that. There you go. Look at that. Okay. The one thing about J.P. Wiser, it's interesting, is they have everything from this what they call deluxe. Okay. Up into 15-year-old, 18-year-old, all kinds of things, and I want to try those because they get really good reviews. We'll talk about that a little later. But this is their regular flagship bottle. And I had a little bit of this, 40%. They say it's double Canadian, or blended, what is it, something about it? Our signature deluxe blend is double distilled and matured in select oak barrels. There is some flavor on this. It's mostly wood and mostly straw and mostly, not the most enticing one. And I hope it won't scare you off, because I'm going to show you some other ones that I have not had. And that's probably my next purchase in Canadian whiskey. Is a older J.P. Wisers. However, I would liken this one to, how you on the bottom end of the spectrum on Irish whiskey, you have a couple different varieties. Like, I like Jameson for a couple of things. I like Tullamore Dew. But there's a couple of things in terms of cocktails, and maybe just, filling a glass with ice and just having a little glass of whiskey, that this would really remind. This is to me, this is kind of the Bushmills black bottle, just a regular standard Bushmills. It's almost in the same bottle, and if you look, the label almost looks the same. Hey, Michelle, are you around? Would you mind bringing me the bottle of Bushmills off the bottom shelf? It's in the Irish whiskey area. And just bring it over here. I'll show you that to you in a second. So those are just a few selections from the Hiram Walker Distillery. Over here to the right, I also have a couple another thing here. This was a bottle of Wayne Gretzky whiskey. I don't know who sourced this or which distillery made this, but this was very interesting. It caught my eye. It used to be way too expensive, and then all of a sudden it was at Jewel for $20 on sale. Jewel is our grocery store here for people that aren't around from here. And this is he also the great one also owns a winery, and or a whatever. What am I thinking? What is a wine? What do you call a winery? Yeah, he's got the grapes. He puts his skates on. He goes out in the field and he skates across the grapes, and they make wine. Maybe that's not correct. 100% correct. Anyway, it was aged or finished in a red. It says red cask, a red wine cask. There you go. What? Oh, I'm sorry. Anyway, I bought this, and at $20, this was really good. This has a nice little Canadian scent, but there's also, it reminds me of, has some floral notes and things like that. I like it a whole lot. Something worth checking out. It wasn't worth $50, but when it was on sale for $20, I wish I would have bought another bottle. Just to show you what I was talking about is, you can see that these two bottles really do not look all that different. You know, just a little bit of different size. But this J.P. Wiser, just regular deluxe, reminds me of Bushmills in a way. Useful for certain things. All right, we're going to dial it in now, and now we're going to talk about our last brand of the day, or at least I'm going to show you samples. We're going to talk about Crown Royal over here. Okay, now I have, you see 3 bottles here, but 2 of them are the same. As I mentioned, Michelle, I got to ask you to do one more thing. Sorry, I forgot to mention something. What? Yeah, I'm asking you for one more favor. Could you go to the Crown Royal website and see what the name is of this program they have where you can donate the bags? It should be right on there. Just put in Crown Royal. Thank you. Here we go. I have my producer over here in the back. So I have 2 bottles here of Crown Royal. They look very similar, but after some research, I have found out that they are, we'll look at, ready, drum roll. Wait, if it was made in 1960 and now it's 1921, this could be, how many years different? Is that 60? If this is a 60-some bottle, like, this would be like close to 60 years. We're that old. Yeah, I'm 50. Let's say this was 60. Okay, so this bottle could be anywhere from 50 to 60 years old. Now, you'll notice on this label, here, let me put the lid cam on. You'll notice this is an old one here. Okay, this was a gift that somebody gave me. It was sealed. You'll notice that this says Seagram's on top. And Seagram's Crown Royal has been the name for this forever. Seagram's sold this to Diageo, the big multinational whiskey distributor, distiller, everything in whiskey in London, in the year 2000. So I'm not just guessing on this. I checked labels for a long time. And on this label, you'll notice that this was made in the Waterloo, Ontario, Canada distillery. And there's a couple other things on this label. It doesn't say deluxe like this one does. And finally, there is no UPC seal on this bottle at all. So I've checked this out. This is plenty old. I have the old Seagram's bag. I dumped another sample there. There's the old Seagram's bag. Okay, all Crown Royal comes with this kind of well-known little this purple bottle, or purple bag, I should say. All right, I need to pour a little bit more. What's going on over there? You're adding a little music?
No, they were.
Oh, okay. All right. So here is that. Now I also have one that I bought 4 days ago, Crown Royal. Okay. As you can see, the bottle looks kind of the same, and what's really neat about it is that the color really looks very much the same. Okay, I think if you pour them together into a glass, as I have here, and I don't spill any more on the carpet, you can see that they are not very different. Okay, Crown Royal goes $25, $27. Like I say, it's their flagship. It's been around forever. Let's try a little bit of it. All right, this is the old one. The old one has cola, nuts, sweetness, all that kind of stuff that I like. but it has a darker, almost like a molasses flavor on the end, which is very, very good. I like that a whole lot. Uh, the new one, the new one is a little sweeter, a little tangier, a little more brighter fruit. Now that could also be because it's, I mean, decades different in age. It also comes with this blue bag. Look at that; it's very nice, very pretty bag. And I would say that they really, I think if you blind taste tested me on it, um, I would have trouble picking out which one was which. But I will say that it's very, very similar, and that's pretty striking. That I think after a couple more, I would probably not know the difference. I guess the difference is that I'm feeling it just tastes a little darker, and again, it has a little more of a molasses flavor. Um, I really like this one. I think this one is kind of like this is one of I like to call one of my leather patch or my study whiskeys. Okay, like Dewar's 15, the ancestor. Everyone should just have one of these around so you can sit and read a book. Maybe you're reading a book about Canadian whiskey. Maybe you're watching an old hockey game. All right, crank up some Joni Mitchell. Uh, Joni Mitchell. Yeah, we don't need to get into that. All right, I was gonna make a Joe Rogan comeback joke, but he's a very clever guy. I'm not gonna battle with Joe Rogan. He's a funny guy. I read it's really funny. Good stuff there. Anyway, you're listening to that. What did I just do? I can't remember which song I just quoted from her. But anyway, you're drinking that. Crown Royal is really the way to go. If you are just looking for just down the middle kind of alternative to rye, there's a lot of rye flavor in it. And I really like this one. It's also would be again another one of these things that might be a good alternative to some other thing that you're using in your blended your mixed drinks. It's very good. It's so ubiquitous that you add it to Coke that you can buy that in a can right now. So that's out. Crown Royal and Coke, you can actually buy that in a can. Did you find the name of that, Michelle? What I asked you to look up?
The purple product?
Yeah. Is that what it's called?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, where you could. Okay. We're going to wrap this up with my last one here, what kind of brought me down this path, talking about Canadian stuff. And we're going to talk about the Crown Royal Noble Collection, limited release, winter wheat, bottled at 45%. Okay? Another thing that's kind of cool about Canadian whiskey is, for the most part, okay, they aren't too precious about their mash bills and stuff like that. They don't keep the secrets that the bourbon companies do. The bourbon companies like to do that because every bourbon company and distillery now wants to make their thing so unique. I got news for everyone. It's not quite as unique as everyone you said. So I'm going to hold this in front of my face and read this. The mash bill on this is 51% hardy red winter wheat, 39% corn, and 10% malted barley. Okay? What is the difference between this other than price? Got a nice cool little cool bottle here. Very elegant looking bottle. All right? You can see that right there. Look at that. Very nice. Okay? It's not embossed, but that's that labeling there. It's not a paper label. Well, that's a paper label. But the other one up here, it's all kind of stamped on there. Very nice. You get that box as I showed you. And as an added bonus, the bag on this one, which I have lost. Where'd it go? Oh, here it is very unique. It's like a microfiber, okay? Feel the microfiber, all right? I'll come back to that later, too. So, tasting notes on this one. This is why I love this one. Got my Norland glass that Mike Wallace gave to me. If you don't know this glass, this is a little different from the ones that I normally drink. It's kind of a glass within a glass, okay? See that? So it holds it, your finger. Kind of the idea of the brandy thing or the stemware, but it's a nice, hold for whiskey. Very nice. Norland, Norlan. I broke one of them, though. Don't ever break one of these. There's a lot of glass in here. It kind of flies everywhere. Not tempered glass by any means. So the nose on this is completely different. There's none of that cola taste. What would be the best? Sunflower. Figs, but more in the raisins and dates area. a little bit of cinnamon, some breakfast spices, and of course banana, but not ripe banana. Kind of, not old kind of brown banana. Very ripe, like almost the strings of the banana when you peel it. Mm, mm. I am so glad I bought this. Um, on the taste, getting a little bit of cherry, dark cherry. Uh, Maybe banana bread is really thick here. Banana bread, dark chocolate, but not in a sweet way. Uh, on the end, you might get a little bit of that of it's all wheat and banana bread until the end of the palate, going into the finish. There you get some butter. Oh, who doesn't like buttered popcorn flavor in their whiskey? Okay, that's there. Okay, a little bit of that cola taste just on there. A little bit of pepper, and you end with just some really nice. Yeah, it's just banana bread. That's the thing that I need to bring out the most here. Banana bread. So it's sweet, but not in your. Guess what I would say. It's not in that overly sweet way that you would think of some of the our worse wheated whiskeys. Okay, you know what I mean? Maybe Weller's Antique 106 has a nice note on it. But Special Reserve gets a little darker, and then Larceny is too sweet for me, as we've mentioned many times. This is nothing like that. On the very end, some more chocolate. This is just a huge blast of flavors. If you are looking to try something new, you have a little money to go out and prepare for the you got to take a break between shoveling and you want to be a little decadent. The Crown Royal limited release Noble Collection Winter Wheat at 45% is a showstopper. I really like this one. The surprising thing about this, if you listen to the mash bill, there was no mention of rye on there. Okay, no mention of rye at all. And I don't know how they're getting that flavor in there, but I taste all kinds of rye. Maybe it was aged in an ex-rye cask. I know they were aged in American casks. Maybe there were some rye. Maybe those are some ex-rye casks. To wrap this up here, okay, I'm just going to give you, out of all these that I have up here, if you just need a basic blender and you want to try a little alternative, there's nothing wrong with the JP Wiser. Okay. You want to go up a little bit and maybe find a rye alternative that I would say, is a great value in Canadian whiskey. The Canadian Club 9-year-old Reserve. They also have a 12. I've never had that, but this one is really nice. This would be a nice complement. This is very comparable, I would say, to the Knob Creek run of 9-year-old things. Their 9-year-old bourbon, their 9-year-old rye. Why not get this and create a kind of like a nice cross-border unity at 9-year-olds. I don't know what that meant. Canadian Crown Royal. No, I kind of think that, again, it's your leather patch, your study, your back room. You're going over to somebody's house and you don't know what to bring. Bring a bottle of Crown Royal. Nobody will be disappointed. They might be like, bleh, and then they'll be drinking it like crazy. It goes down really, really easy. Finally, here you go. Crown Royal Noble Collection. Wheat, winter wheat. Beautiful. I'm going to show you one other thing here. A couple, again, now I'm not, that familiar with these. I've never had any of these, I don't think. But these are ones that I saw in my store, or in some stores, that you might want to check out. First, we have the J.P. Wiser 15-year-old. That's a complex whiskey with a touch of rye spice. That's what they say. Approximately $50. $50. 15 years at $50 seems like a steal to me, and it gets lots of great reviews online. The J.P. Wiser 18 bourbon barrel aged. Again, I'm not speaking from mine. It has an aroma of earth, smoke, and rye on the nose. I just did some research. 18 at $70. Now we're getting a little different. It might be something that you might be out, and if they have it, at your favorite whiskey bar, maybe instead of getting bourbon or scotch, give this a shot. Okay. Next one up, Canadian Club, 100% rye. Okay, this is a sub $20 bottle. I think I've had this a while back, but we don't have it now or something like that. Anyway, this is 100% rye, as it says. if you want to get that experience of what 100% Canadian rye tastes like for under $20, it seems like to be worth it. And it might be. I know it's great for mixing and all that kind of stuff. The other two that I've noticed that got really good reviews, I kind of want to spread it around in terms of distilleries, was the Lot 40 Rye. I hear about this all the time. They do a lot of advertising on some of the whiskey podcasts that I listen to. That is a mash bill of 100% rye that is distilled in copper pot stills. So buttery with notes of fruit and vanilla. If it's done in copper pot stills, this is going to be closer to your kind of meaty spicier Irish whiskeys that are done the same way, and this is 100% rye. Very interesting. I said J.P. Wiser might be my next buy. If I could find that lot 40 at $35, I might get that one next. All right, and if you get it next, let me know. Finally, the 40 Creek. This is from the Grimsby, Ontario distillery. It says notes of, I don't ever know how to say this word, praline. I have an accent of an undistinguished person. I have no idea what region they're from, so I'm going to say praline. Honey and dark fruits on the palate. Michelle didn't even entertain me on that last little quip. She just nodded, kind of shook her head in many different directions. As nondescript as that accent was, her nodding was just as nondescript. The 40 Creek is approximately $50. All right. So that's going to be kind of our wrap it up in terms of the Irish whiskey stuff here. Okay. And Irish whiskey, Canadian whiskey. Come on, Michelle, you got to correct me on that. I got one more thing here to talk about, and hopefully my stream is still running. I'm gonna open up. Okay. Oh, I still have an image of the house. Okay, whatever. I'm confused by this, but maybe I just need to refresh the website. All right. Hopefully I'm not talking to myself right now. Last thing. Okay. I have a little announcement to make. I don't know why I'm making this such a big deal, but I wanted to let you know that I'm going to be doing something a little differently with Drinking a Wink from now on. I don't know if it's on my side or our side or my MacBook Pro, which is already a very dusty, old, grungy 1-year-old, or something of that nature, or the excellent internet that we get, that I have an Ethernet cable, but I'm not so nuts about these videos, these feature videos on Facebook Live. I like the little short ones, and I love the Facebook group for little blog posts and, that kind of thing. But these feature videos, I'm not so nuts about because I don't have the control of it. So I have created a Drinkin' a Wink YouTube page and a Google account, obviously. And so what I'm going to do is, I'm not asking you to do anything. I'm just letting you know that in a sometime when I have a little time, I'm going to move a couple of the videos from here over to there, and then I'm going to start saving Facebook for like my text posts, news posts, maybe an occasional that, or a real short review where I just want to walk outside and do it. But for some of these features, that doesn't seem that, for me, at least me, Facebook is doing the trick for me. So I'm going to move that over. If you want to kind of search it out, there's nothing there yet, but it's just Drink and a Wink with the ampersand for the and. If you want to check that out and you find me, I would love to get your subscriber on there, but soon enough I'll have a few videos up there, if just an announcement, and I'll post it all up. I will continue to, when I do those YouTube lives, like if I was doing this one, I will continue to share it to Facebook. I just want to let everybody know that I want to up the game of Drinking a Wink a little bit, because we still have some time to do it, and I'm getting more and more interested in things. And a couple of people are showing some more interest in it. But it seems like Facebook just isn't really doing it for me in terms of just control. So that's what I'm thinking, and that's about it. You have anything else to say, Michelle? You have anything else to say? Come on, why don't you come on camera just for a second? You look beautiful, so why would you? This was also kind of on the suggestion of Michelle. She was telling me, you're going to see this delayed, so don't worry about it. But she kind of was giving me a suggestion that I needed to maybe up the game a little bit and move over to YouTube, because we like Facebook for what it is, and we don't like it for what it's not. It's like Tricks. No, it's not like Tricks, because Tricks was Kicks. That was Kicks.
I was gonna say Tricks is for kids, and I was
No,
like,
Kicks.
I'm not following
Kicks
you
is
at all.
the kids like Kicks for what Kicks has got is not. Wait, what? You know what? We'll sort this out later. Have a good one. I'm gonna have a little bit more here. Here you go. What? What did you say?
That didn't show our age.
Yeah, right. Well, I don't know if anything showed our age because I'm still seeing the first shot over here. So something didn't refresh.
Oh my god.
I have no idea.
Yeah, we'll see you guys on YouTube.
Yep. All right.
Bye.
It just froze. I can't end this. I don't. Wait, it just went away now. What?
That's awesome. It's so awesome.
Wait. I want to end it. Why? I can't.